Hi, my name is Andrew. I'll be talking about bushwalking in difficult tracked environments for my trained participant qualification. Question 1. I can demonstrate how I walk to maintain rhythm, ascend and descend stairs and slopes, and adjust to the terrain. Maintaining rhythm within a group means walking at the speed of your slowest group member. This is a good means to stay together as well, but also allows the walk leader to try and maintain a steady pace with a steady walking rhythm and lowers the whole group's effort. By doing this, we adjust the group's speed to suit the terrain, and a steady pace helps the estimation of distances and timings. A consistent rhythm can also be set by an individual regulating their breathing to a steady pace, slowing it down to help conserve effort. When we ascend or descend slopes or steps or scrambles, we always maintain 3 points of contact that will be on a railing, a tree, or rock holds. We use whatever's available. This allows us to adapt to the terrain and keep a balance. Sometimes we'll need to sidestep or zigzag to clear an obstacle or a path, but adjust to suit the terrain. On the Katoomba to Devil's Hole hike on the 18th of October 2020, we had a very steep fire trail section that spread out the party, and we needed to adjust the speed of the front of the pack to slow them down, as some members were slow coming up the hill. This was to maintain an easy rhythm and to maintain line of sight of the entire party. Similarly, when we got to the bottom of the Devil's Hole track, there were rock scrambles and slippery sections and very steep stairs that required us to ensure 3 points of contact, sidestepping, and being careful not to slip. Question 2. I can show that I know the safety procedures for a walk. Research the walk beforehand and make sure that we are familiar with the specifics. We always walk at the pace of the slowest person, ensuring good visual contact with all party members as much as possible. We check the weather forecasts for before, during, and soon after the walk to know the potential for bad weather events. We do soon after for the case of the weather moves in faster than expected. Always carry at least one spare meal in case you get delayed or stranded. Always tell more than one person where you're going and plan for what they should do, as well as when they should do it if you are overdue. We also leave a trip pack in waterproof clear holder on the vehicles at the start and end of the walk, containing all necessary details of who is walking and where we are going and when we plan to be at each stage. Fill out a trip-in tent form with NPWS or NSW Police. Always be sun safe, as well as dress for the appropriate weather conditions with contingencies for bad weather. Always carry at least 2 litres of water per person. Always carry multiple first aid kits within the group. Always carry at least one EPIRB spot tracker, including spare batteries. Multiple party members should have paper maps and compasses. Multiple party members should have first aid qualifications. On the Ikara Head to Girraween Cave Loop walk on the 29th of August 2020, 2 leaders had spot trackers and all scout presents had paper maps and compasses. We had 5 first aid qualified scouts, leaders, venturers. Everyone carries 2 litres of water and had snacks and meals. The weather forecast was validated leading up to the walk, the morning of the walks, and was kept an eye on during the walk. Question 3. I can explain an emergency response for a walk. Party leader delegates roles and tasks to other experienced members and avoids trying to do everything themselves. Attend to injured person, ensure any person at risk, ill or injured is safe. Provide first aid following the standard protocols. Ensure other group members are safe and bring them together. Put up tents or shelter for warmth or shade. Get a stove going for a hot drink in cooler weather. Assess the situation, collect all information available. Allow time to think, don't rush. Keep notes and consult other experienced members. Contact emergency services. Call for help sooner rather than later. And change the trip plan if required. On the Minnehaha Waterfall Walk, 10th of December 2020, when we reached the falls, one scout injured his ankle while walking around. First aid was applied and the decision to walk him out prior to the rest of the party leaving was made. The injury was not severe enough to call for any assistance, so a leader and 2 scouts carried him out back up the track the way that we walked in on. The rest of the party left soon after and met them soon after they arrived at the top. No special arrangements needed to be made as it was normal pickup time. There were no breaks and the scout was fine. Question 4. I understand clothing, especially layering, fabric types, and managing body temperature. When hiking, we always wear multiple light layers to help regulate body temperature and comfort. It's often very cold when we hike, so many light layers is a necessity to be able to remove outer layers once we start walking and our body temperature increases. We usually wear 3 layers: base, insulation, and outer. Base is worn next to the skin and is usually to keep the skin dry by wicking, usually merino wool or synthetic layer, not cotton. Insulating layer is your warmth layer and can be more than one item of clothing. Trapped air is the goal, so fleece or down type of clothing is good. Finally, the outer layer is your wind and rain protection, usually waterproof. On the walk that we did Megalong to Shipley on the 27th of August 2020, it was cold in the Megalong at Blackheath Glen when we set off. I wore a bamboo short sleeve undershirt, long sleeve quick dry shirt, and flannel shirt over, providing me with the immediate warmth that I required. Soon after setting off up the hill to the off-track section, I heated up and removed the flannel shirt and rolled up the sleeves of my long sleeve shirt, regulating my body temperature. When we reached the flat section at the top of the off-track scamble in the cliff line, it got cold again, and I rolled down my sleeves to warm up. Question 5. I understand how waterproof gear works and types, including clothing and keeping packed items dry. Outer layer waterproofness is important, but so is choosing the correct type of gear. A plastic raincoat will stop water getting in, but because it doesn't breathe, it'll trap the sweat, making you wet from the inside. Good rain gear is a breathable fabric like Gore-Tex or similar, and are the best for keeping you dry from the outside and the inside. Gear sacks or dry bags don't need to be made of any specialist type of material, bar being waterproof. They can be rubberized, nylon, or polymerized as long as they're flexible and have their seams sealed. Dry bags have a rolled top with a buckle mechanism, allowing them to be used inside packs and sealed to keep the contents dry, while still being able to access everything without removing the whole bag. Usually, multiple layers of bags can be a good idea for trips such as canoeing, where it's possible for the bags to become submerged. On the Hat Hill Trig hike on the 11th of November 2021, it was an exceedingly wet hike. I wore a windproof and waterproof Kathmandu Pertex rain jacket and a Kubra hat, as well as water-resistant overpants and long gaiters over waterproof hike boots. The pants and gaiters kept my legs dry, the jacket allowed me to stay dry while still be breathable, and the hat kept my head dry. Whilst my day pack is waterproofed, I also used a dry bag inside to ensure that everything stayed dry. Question 6. I can list various hazards with associated controls that may be found on a walk. Firstly, your risk assessment will cover this in much greater detail. However, the following are some examples. Roots and rocks. Be wary of obstacles and recognize tripping hazards. Fallen tree logs. Go around if possible. Be aware that if stepping over logs, snakes might be stunning themselves on the other side out of sight. Unstable track surface. Slippery, rocky, or loose tread on uneven or unsecure section of track. Maintain 3 points of contact and be prepared to adjust stance if slips. Water crossings. Be aware of current and depth of water. Do not try to cross if over knee height without proper training. Hazardous flora and fauna. Snakes and spiders are a real risk. Know where they are and try to avoid them. Be aware that when you're walking, almost every plant has spikes that will prickle you. Temperature extremes. We should always layer clothing for cold, but also for heat. Wear wide brim hats and regularly apply sunscreen. Exposure to storms, heavy rain, hail, and strong wind. Ensure to always carry wet weather gear that is breathable and impervious to wind. As to how this has been applied to a walk, Have a look at the provided risk assessment that was from Megalong Cemetery to Cox's Campground and back, and covered all these items. Question 7. I've determined my location whilst navigating difficult tracked environments using a map, identifying natural features, constructed objects, and distance travelled. I always carry a paper map and compass to complement electronic navigation means. While electronics GPS trackers and such have made geolocation and track progress trivially simple, we always practice triangulation and feature identification on paper maps with a compass. Rocky outcrops, towers, rivers, creeks, and junctions are all good ways to simply identify location on a map. Rough hiking speeds, such as 1 km per hour climbing up a steep, slopey spur with thick scrub, 2 km an hour scrambling over large rocks along a steep, sloping creek, 3 km an hour walking down a steep, sloping spur, 4 km an hour walking along a flat track. This pace can be maintained all day. Can help estimate how far you've walked in a given time to aid estimation. We also use Nasmyth rule to estimate effort by time, distance, and record suitable waypoints in our planning. Walford's cave attempt number 2 on the 6th of January 2022 is an example of using maps and features to determine our location. There are a couple of different tracks and intersections that were not clear where we were located. However, using the map and features, we were able to determine our location. Question 8. I've determined my location whilst navigating difficult tracked environments using compass techniques, including resections, tri-bearings. When walking off track or on a track but with no identifying track junctions, it can be necessary to establish your current position by resection or triangulation. We try to use unambiguous features to identify both visually and on the map, then plot the bearing on paper. Usually a good enough position can be established with one prominent feature for a good bearing with other distinguishing features, 2 for a better location, or 3 for a far more accurate bounding triangle of your immediate location. The smaller the triangle, the more accurate your position. Determining our location is an extremely common task that is done multiple times per walk. Usually this can be done very simply and quickly using a couple of phone apps that we use with digital topo maps and GPS location. However, sometimes it is necessary to look at the paper map. On the Asgard Kiln and Mine walk on the 5th of October 2019, we missed a track junction and ended up out near Asgard Head. Using map and compass, we were able to determine our location on the paper map. This was a learning experience for the grey wolf cubs, but we were able to see how we used landmarks, compass, and paper map to determine our location. Question 9. I've determined my location while navigating difficult tracked environments using a GPS device. While we maintain good practice of paper-based location determination, GPS trackers and phones are the most simplest of devices to use and accurately determine your position. I use a couple of different phone apps to not only display the current position, but also track my position and track as well as useful as data such as elevation gain or see where other hikers have walked. Avenza Maps is my go-to tracking app for recording tracks with distances, but I also use Terra Maps, Hammer Maps, and Strava, although Strava is notoriously bad for GPS track accuracy. Exported GPX tracks can be super useful for future planning and reviewed by importing into other apps such as Google Earth or Relive to visualize the track, progress, and photos. We use this technique literally on every hike to determine where we are. Scouts use this method, as do leaders. Avenza Maps and TerraMap phone apps are used to record the track and see our progress. Question 10. I've used techniques in navigating difficult tracked environments, including linear and point references, handrailing, collecting features, catch points, aiming off, back bearing, GPS waypoints, and routes. When walking difficult tracks, there can be physical clues as to your location, such as peaks, cliffs, creeks, ridges, and so on. If you need to get to a point and the track is difficult, but you can tell the right way by sticking near a creek or a river as they're going the same way, then you can do that to ensure that you're going in the correct direction. Getting to a point that is hard to see, but you can see a feature beyond that point, you can know that if you get to the feature beyond your point, then you've gone too far. When navigating by map and compass, and you need to maintain a set course, sight off a prominent feature on that bearing that you can easily see and get to, and then when you get there, re-sight off and find another prominent feature. This will keep you on the same track. If a feature that you're trying to get to is obscured by trees or mist or weather and you can't actually see it, but there's a trail or creek or path that leads to it, it can be handy to set a course not directly to the feature, as you might miss it or not know what direction it lies once you hit the creek or path. Instead, we deliberately set a course to the left or right of that feature so that we know which direction to turn when getting to the creek or the path. This is called aiming off. Navigating in difficult environments and using GPS, it's simple to set waypoints for key features that you've planned out prior to the walk that you feel will be on the best route. By checking your location on the GPS, you can correct your course to hit that waypoint. 5th of July 2020, we explored around the burnt out area of Lost Sitting in Nunes. Most of these techniques were employed as the tracks weren't clear, nor was the directions to head. We wanted to get to one of the large dams. It was the point feature that we were aiming for. So while navigating around obstacles and couldn't always see it, it was the general navigation feature. Behind the dam was a hill. That was our catching feature. We would have gone too far if we'd hit the hill. On the return walk, we used a creek that was visible during the walk in as a handrail, and we followed that to the main track, allowing for a simpler return. Question 11. I've determined that there's been a deviation from the planned route, adjusted and resumed to the planned route after fixing position, using manual techniques on one occasion and GPS on a separate occasion. On the Asgard Kiln and Mine walk 5th of October 2019, we missed a track junction and ended up out near Asgard Head. Using map and compass, we were able to determine our location on the paper map. This was a learning experience for the grey wolf cubs, but we were able to see how we used landmarks, compass and paper map to determine our location. Once we knew where we were able to backtrack to where we took a wrong turn and to get back on the expected track. While we supervised and assisted the cubs with a map and compass technique, we used phone and apps and GPS and knew exactly where our location was at all times. Question 12. I've made adjustments to routes and navigated the changed routes, using manual techniques on one occasion and GPS on a separate occasion. 28th of August 2022, Jersey Falls attempt number 3. We were attempting to use a chute feature to avoid cliff lines and other obstacles to get to Katoomba Creek. The chute was impassable, so using map and GPS to determine our location, we found a spur that the map contours showed would be passable. Compass heading was determined, and using features to sight off the heading and keep on it, we headed off towards the spur. We then used the spur to handrail the descent to the creek. Question 13. I know the features, functions, and operation of global positioning systems, GPS, advantages and disadvantages when these might be used. I can plan and navigate a route using a GPS device. Planning for every walk that I do is done using both paper maps as well as digital maps. The Mapometer website is used to get basic information on length, elevation, and basic waypoints. This information is fed into Nasmith rule to get a good idea of timing. Using digital maps and phone apps, we can set waypoints and expected tracks to follow, allowing to see your progress as well as where you might go wrong. We always have paper copies of maps and compasses so that we have a backup in case of battery drain or failure of a GPS, or phones, or when in a gully or area without a good view of the sky. Question 14. I know how to test a compass. I test my compasses and those that I give to my scouts to use on walks with a few simple tests. Laying the compass flat, I turn the bezel, looking to ensure that the compass needle stays pointing in the same direction. The second test is to use a known tree off in the distance of the scout hall with a good known bearing, and sight that tree, get its bearing with the compass to be tested. If it reads the same bearing as the known bearing, then that compass is good. Question 15. I can identify the types of navigation aids found in the field and how these can assist with navigation. Most MPWS or council walks are signposted and have trail signs. These tell you the distance of the walk, expected conditions, hazards, duration, and offer an unambiguous trail to follow with markers at every intersection. We follow these and they guide us in the right direction. Another form of navigation aid that you might find on a walk is a rock cairn, broken branches, or rock or stick trail signs such as arrows. These could also be drawn on the ground or scratched into rocks. On the 3rd of October 2022, we were looking for an alternate Gooch's Crater track, and we were following a path that was on Avenza maps. At one point when we checked the progress, we could see that we were off the marked track. However, off in the distance, over a rock shelf, we could see a rock cairn, pointing us back to the original track. Question 16. I can identify factors that affect the adjustment of routes during activities. Routes need to be adjusted for a number of reasons, and it's not all that uncommon. Track sections get closed, trees or rocks fall across paths, or even fauna decides to sun themselves in the middle of the track. All of these reasons may need us to move on to a different part of the track, find an alternate route. We may need to sidestep around an obstacle. We may need to climb over a tree. We may need to backtrack and find an alternate track. This happens all the time, and it's something that we do regularly, and we train our scouts on how to perform these actions. I hope that I've been able to adequately demonstrate my bushwalking capabilities in a difficult tracked environment, noting that a good percentage of the walks that I've done have actually been very difficult off-track walks, requiring a very good understanding of traditional navigation and the required skills to be able to find your location and potential route, work out how to get to the point you want to get to, using nothing more than a topo map, compass, and some visual references. Thanks for taking the time to go over my RPL responses, and I look forward to completing more advanced bushwalking RPL modules when they become available in the future. Thanks.